Hi, this is Mark Wade from CenterCityCondos.com. In this podcast, I'd like to talk about Fitler Square in the 19103 zip code of downtown Philadelphia. Okay, so Fitler Square is really our westernmost part of downtown Philadelphia, located just east of the Schuylkill River and adjacent to University City, where the University of Penn and Drexel are located. Fitler Square is a groovy little neighborhood and highly coveted, if you will, because it is a little bit quiet kind of neighborhood adjacent to Rittenhouse Square also that has some cute little quiet streets and some beautiful houses and some nice condo buildings and a variety of styles as far as pre-war or contemporary. Now, the reality is there are not a lot of condo buildings in the Fitler Square area. I mean, we're talking about Locust Point on the 2400 block of Locust, River's Edge, 2201 Cherry. Adjacent to Fitler Square, you've got Naval Square, 251 South 24th Street also, which is a really kind of groovy, small boutique-styled loft buildings. And you've got a number of low-rise buildings like the Palladian at 2138 Lombard, 2100 Delancey, 2217-19 Delancey, and then the low-rise townhouse-styled condominiums at Fitler's Walk. So it's a groovy area, high demand. Generally speaking, there's a very low DOM, days on market quotient in Fitler Square. Condominiums in the area have a tendency to sell fairly quickly when they come on the market. And Fitler Square is usually known to have a higher demand than it does supply of condo buildings. Great proximity to the University of Pennsylvania. Fitler Square is known for having a plethora of small, quiet, tree-lined historic streets. Borders, like I say, the Schuylkill River, and the Schuylkill River jogging trail, which is huge. I mean, if you haven't been down to the Schuylkill River Trail and the park and the dog park, and it's really something to look at. It's really kind of neat and a great way to spend your weekends. I mean, if I lived in Fitler Square, I wouldn't need to go to a gym. My whole life would be out there on the jogging trail. It goes all the way up to East Falls, and heavens knows, probably beyond that. Then now we're talking out of the city. I don't know where that. I don't know. Primarily, the condominiums you're going to find in the Fitler Square area have a tendency to be low-rise and mid-rise. We don't find a lot of high-rise buildings unless they were put in a while ago, 20, 30 years ago. Now, there are some newer developments in the area that will certainly bring a lot more people into the Fitler Square area. I mean, and it begs the question, like 23 South 23rd, is that Fitler Square? That's kind of in the area. That's a little, that's 3 or 4 blocks north. If we're talking about 2200 Arch and the Murano, I'd say those are more Logan Square area than Fitler Square. But Fitler Square has some pretty groovy, interesting units. Landmarks around there, of course, again, the Schuylkill River Jogging Trail, University City, Fitler Square Park. There are a number of gyms. The police station there at 401 North 21st Street, a little bit out of the area, but still high-demand neighborhood, high-demand area, quaint, and generally, again, higher demand than there is supply for condominiums in the neighborhood. A lot of times what we'll find in the Fitler Square area is that values are going to be heavily contingent upon not only what part of the area, but also interior condition. Because, once again, Philadelphia, as I've mentioned in other podcasts, our downtown Philadelphia condo market is basically comprised of two types of buyers: first-time buyers and empty nesters. And although they may be worlds apart in terms of what they'll buy, the one thing that they both have in common is they both look for turnkey, move-in condition. So condominiums in Fitler Square, values can be heavily dependent upon, not only where they are in the square footage and the ceiling height and layout, but the driving force of value that I find is interior condition. and of course parking, because to find a condominium with parking in Fitler Square is a rare bird indeed. Just not a lot of them. So if you can find something that you like in that neighborhood with parking, you might want to jump on it fairly quickly, because those have a tendency to sell very, very fast. So Fitler Square, a really groovy neighborhood. A lot of people, although when I have buyers that come in from out of state or out of the country or out of the area, whatever, generally they don't ask for Fitler Square. I may have to introduce them to the area. They all know, and they all know Rittenhouse Square, and the majority of them know Society Hill, but sometimes I'll drag them over to Fitler Square, and that's a lot of times buyers will become hooked on that neighborhood. It's kind of like, and I say this in jest, but the neighborhood is kind of cultish in the fact that if you live there, that's people don't want to live anywhere else. They want to, once people live in Fitler Square, they don't want to move. They want to stay in Fitler Square, and they talk up their neighborhood. And so if I get a buyer for the area, it's very easy. I just sick them on a neighbor, and it's sold. They get sold on the area fairly quickly. It's a nice, comfortable neighborhood with some historic houses, some historic streets, some historic styled condo buildings like Locust Point, which was converted from a warehouse back in the 1980s and then turned into condos in the early 2000s. And it's the proximity to Penn that I think a lot of times holds value in that neighborhood for a lot of people. Once that South Street Bridge got redone and it made an easier pass over to University of Pennsylvania, that was a real plus. But until the University of Pennsylvania decides that they're going to move to Oklahoma, the build-in resale market and even rental market is always going to be strong in Fitler Square, because the University of Pennsylvania is so huge in terms of its student body population or its faculty and staff. So there is kind of an automatic built-in resale market for Fitler Square. So if you move in and then one day you go crazy and decide to move to the moon, it's not that difficult to unload your property in Fitler Square, because you've got the built-in resale market of the faculty, staff, and students at University of Penn. So there you go. This is Mark Wade. That's my 2 cents on Fitler Square. Strong neighborhood. Love it a lot. People generally, since it's about 3 or 4 blocks just west of Rittenhouse Square, you still have the proximity, high walk score, the ability to walk to the restaurants and walk to the shopping and walk to the grocery store, and then walk around the neighborhood and walk the dog, and very pet-friendly neighborhood, by the way. So anyway, Mark Wade, CenterCityCondos.com. Questions, comments, concerns? You pick up the telephone and you push the buttons on the front of it. 215-521-1523. Let's chat. Thank you so much.